الحمد لله ثم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. All praise is due to Allah, and after that all praise is due to Allah. We thank Him, we seek help from Him, we ask guidance in Him, and we seek forgiveness in Him from our own evils and from our own bad deeds. Anyone who has been guided by Allah, they are indeed guided, and anyone who has been misguided by Allah, you will never find a guardian to guide them. I bear witness. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except for Allah, the only one without partner, and I bear witness that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and His messenger to proceed forward. You know, this past week, I had a procedure that was done where I had to be put under. Not permanently, I'm here now, but I had to be put under for a little while. And so, you know, it was a very small procedure, and so I knew in advance that this was going to happen. It was very straightforward, but, you know, I'll be honest with you, I was a little bit nervous. And I'm not sure why I was nervous, because I kept thinking to myself, you know, what if I don't wake up after I go under? And so this got me to think about the approach to death, and more importantly, what did I do to prepare for my eventual end in my life? So I wanted to kind of share my experience with you today, and hopefully you can benefit from it as well. Because even though I was nervous, right, for a believer, death is not something that should be feared. In fact, you know, we should remember it often. The Prophet, Abu Hurairah relates to the Prophet ﷺ, he said, remember more often the destroyer of pleasures. Remember more often the destroyer of pleasures. And this destroyer is death. But this pleasure that we're talking about is not for us. Where, you know, unless your goal is pleasure in this life, then that's not who the Prophet ﷺ is referring to. In fact, for the believer, the Prophet ﷺ said, the gift of a believer is death. The gift of a believer is death. And so, but in the opposite way, we shouldn't be wishing for death, obviously. Anas ibn Malik narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, none of you should wish for death because of a calamity befalling him. Right? Meaning that if something bad happens to you, you don't want to say, oh, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, get me out of this calamity, I just want to die. Right? That's not what the Prophet ﷺ he's saying when a calamity befalls you, right, he should not wish for death. What he should say is, oh Allah, keep me alive as long as life is better for me, and let me die if death is better for me. This is the dua that a believer makes, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of all of our affairs. I just want to give a side note, if you don't, this is kind of a funny story. I thought it was funny. My daughter told me that I was the only one that's going to laugh, so let's see what happens. So, you know, when you go to the doctor, or you talk to scientists and those type of things, and so when I was at the doctor, they said, you know, well, you should really get this procedure done, because, you know, such and such is one of the #1 causes of death amongst men my age. I was like, oh, really? Because I thought the angel of death was the #1 cause of death. No? Anyway. So anyway, that was my little joke for today. Upon reflection on the entire incident that I had, you know, there's 3 things that I just want to highlight, really quickly touch upon that stood out to me. Number 1, you know, the process of them putting you to sleep is the first one that I want to talk about. Here, you know, we have to keep in mind that the sleep is equivalent to death. That the sleep is equivalent to death, because the Prophet there's a companion by the name of Abu Juhayfa, and he mentions the Messenger of Allah was on a journey during which he slept until the sunrise, or until the sun rose. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, verily you were dead, and Allah returned your soul to you. Whoever sleeps and misses a prayer, let him offer it when he wakes up. And whoever forgets a prayer, let him offer it when he remembers. Now, I don't need to go over the mercy just in this hadith alone. Right? The fact that the Prophet ﷺ say, hey, you know, if you don't wake up, just pray as soon as you wake up. And if you miss it because you forgot, then just make it up whenever you do remember. mean, that in itself is a mercy, but the point in this particular khutbah is that the death is like, or sleep is like death. And also the dua that we make as soon as we get up in the morning is what? Alhamdulillah, alladhi ahyana ba'da amatana wa ilayhi nushur. That all praise is due to Allah, who has given us life after He caused us to die. And to Him is our resurrection. Right, so again, even the Prophet ﷺ, when he made this dua, he's recognizing that when he was sleeping, that was in a state of, or in a form of death. So when you're put under, that's what it was. That was part of my nervousness that was going on. Number two is that when you're put under, right, you don't dream, you don't do anything. Your mind, at least what you remember of it, is completely blank. And this is the complete opposite of death. That's the complete opposite of death. Because for the real death, when it happens, there is a life of the grave. There is a life of the grave, and we have to keep this in mind. And this life is different than the life we're living right now, and different than the life we will live on the day of resurrection and whatever happens after that. Every soul shall be asked 3 questions on that day. Who is your Lord? Who is your prophet? And what is your religion? And so for the believer, when he's asked this question, he's going to say, who is your Lord? Allah. Who is your prophet? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And what is your religion? Islam. And when you answer this question, then what's going to happen is that the angels are going to say, we knew you were going to answer this question properly. We knew you were a believer. And then they're going to take that soul and they're going to show him his or her place in paradise. And they're going to say, this is your place until the day of resurrection. Until the day of resurrection, this is your place. And then they're going to show him the hellfire, and they're going to show him this would have been your place, but Allah chose to be merciful upon you, and because you were a believer, you will have heaven as your place during the life of the grave, which is called barzakh. And the opposite also is true for the non-believer. He will be asked 3 questions. Who is your Lord? Who is your prophet? And what is your religion? And he's going to answer, I don't know. People were saying something, and I just said the same thing they did. So that's what's going to happen to the unbeliever. So let me pause here for a second, because this is something to ponder, because I know I've had this discussion with many people about this. And that is that people ask the question, well, if we know our place in heaven or hell, what's the point of the day of judgment? It's a valid question. I just gave you a story the Prophet ﷺ said that you're going to be shown your place in heaven. So what's the point? And the key to me, at least, to remember, is that the life of the grave, which is called al-barzakh, is different than the life of the hereafter, which is the one that's going to happen on the day of judgment. And they're completely different, and there's going to be, you're not going to remember what happened in the previous life. Right? So the scholars say there's 5 different lives that you have as a human being. There is the life before the womb, this life of barzakh in the grave, and then the day of judgment and thereafter. Do you remember what happened in your mother's womb? No. So when you arise on the day of resurrection, you're not going to know what happened when you're in the life of the barzakh. So it is a life, we're going to live it. Some of us will be really constricted. Inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala saves us from that. Others will be enjoying it as we've never enjoyed anything before. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may Allah make us of those that actually do get to enjoy it. Right? So that's my answer to that. So you stay under for as long as you do with anesthesia. And in fact, you have no idea whether you've been in there for a second, a minute, an hour, or a day. There's an absence of time. And that is the same thing when you die. There's an absence of time. The time is only a fixture of this life, right? Of the next life, there is nothing like that. And that is why a person who died 1,000 years ago and a person who dies today, for them, the day of judgment happens instantaneously. For them, the day of judgment happens instantaneously. And that's something always to keep in mind when we're talking about death. That was number 2. Number 3, finally, when I woke up from my anesthesia, I was disoriented, I was dizzy, and I didn't know where I was. I could barely even talk. And when the nurse came up to me, she said, "Do you understand what I'm saying?" And I was like, maybe a little bit kind of, give me some time and I'll be able to understand. And then when I got up, I almost fell, because I was still dizzy from from the anesthesia that was given to me. And it was like I was in a state of drunkenness. It's interesting, right? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran in Surah Hajj. He says, O mankind, fear your Lord. Indeed, the convulsion of the final hour is a terrible thing. On the day you see it, every nursing mother will be distracted from that which she was nursing. Every pregnant woman will abort her pregnancy. And you will see the people intoxicated while they are not intoxicated. وَتَرَى النَّاسُ سُكَارَى وَمَا هُمْ بِسُكَارَى وَلَكِنَّ عَذَابَ اللَّهِ شَدِيدٌ. That you will see them intoxicated, but they're not intoxicated. Just like if you were looking at me waking up from my anesthesia, you'd think I was drunk. I could barely walk, I was disoriented, but I wasn't drunk. And the same thing happens on the day of resurrection again. وَلَكِنَّ عَذَابَ اللَّهِ شَدِيدٌ. And verily, the punishment of Allah is severe. So, I got a glimpse of what it would be like, at least for me, towards the end of my life. After I die, when I'm resurrected, and I've told you many times, I share things that are happening in my life, and I try to explain them to you the best that I can. And when things happen in your life, you should reflect upon them too. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, أَفَلَا تَفَكَّرُونَ أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ, do you not reflect? These are the things that He's talking about. That you reflect on things that happen in your life, and you always relate them back to Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You relate everything back to that point, because that's your reference point. That is your anchor for which life revolves around. And so whatever you happen, you look at it and you think, okay, how would this be able to be explained? And that's what I wanted to explain. But now that I've said that, all this talk about death that I've done so far, how many people want to hear some good news? Want some good news? Okay. The companions, when they heard this hadith, they said they'd never been happier in their life. There was a Bedouin who came up to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, "Mata sa'a?" He said, "When is the hour going to come?" And the Prophet ﷺ responded back, he said, "What have you done to prepare for it?" And the man, he replied back and he said, "I made no significant preparation, Ya Rasulullah, for the regard to salah, as prayer, with regard to Sawm, fasting, or regards to sadaqah, or charity. I made no special things, that I didn't do anything special for it, but I love Allah and His Messenger. But I love Allah and His Messenger." And the Prophet ﷺ responded and he said, "You will be with those whom you love. You will be with those whom you love." I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who love Him and His Messenger and die not except in a state of submission. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر ولكم واستغفر. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. So in continuing in the tradition that I did last time, I was giving my khutbah for those that who were around. I'm going to recite to you a poem. And this poem you're not going to find on YouTube, or you're not going to find anywhere. It was written by this very, very famous poet named Munim Salam. In what state will you die? My question to you as I begin is, in what state will you die? As you're put 6 feet under, in what state will you lie? As your kids or your parents or your loved ones make ghusl, how will they remember you? As a liar or a cheat, or someone who is true? We go through our lives as if this life is it. We know it's not true if we just pondered a bit. The Prophet had a simile, like a traveler passing through, sitting to rest under a tree, knowing what he must do. Get up and move on to his final destination. There is no delaying, no procrastination. O Muslims, we are blessed to be guided by Islam, for if we were not in the grave, there would be no calm. When the angels come ask us the 3 little questions, who is your Lord, who is your Prophet, what is the religion you followed from all the religions? I ask Allah to make us answer these questions right, for if we do not, definitely our graves will be tight. So my question to you, O Muslims, is, in what state will you die? As you are put 6 feet under, in what state will you lie? As your kids, your parents, your loved ones make ghusl, how will they remember you? As a liar or a cheat, or someone that was true? Allah has given us all the answers in His book. All we have to do is but take a look. The meaning of life, the wonders of creation have all been stated. How to behave, how to worship have all been legislated. So it is for us to decide that Allah we follow, for if we go with shaitan, our deeds will be hollow. And Allah mentions in the Quran to act not on shaitan's temptation. I know we can do it because Allah says we're the best of creation. Be truthful to your neighbor, and with money do not be greedy. Believe in Allah's oneness and give out to the needy. We have all the answers in the Prophet who is our guide, in the Sunnah and the Hadith. We just have to subdue our pride. So I ask you, O Muslims, in what state will you die? As you are put 6 feet under, in what state will you lie? As your kids or your parents or your loved ones may ghusl, how will they remember you? As a liar or a cheat or someone that was true? As I speak here today, I just wanted to say, we never know when death will come, at night or during the day. The Prophet told us that we will be judged by the last deeds that we do. In this there is deep wisdom, and that is for sure is true. I pray to Allah that till the last second we continue to strive. Make a commitment, O Muslims, that now is the beginning of the rest of your life. In life, we are put through many tests and many a sorrow. We must put faith in Allah and pray a better day will come, maybe tomorrow. But in the good that happens to us, there is a test as well. For if we give credit to others or ourselves, we will end up in hell. When others die, move on like a traveler. We should see it as a warning. Use them as examples, good or bad, only 3 days in mourning. So the question still remains, my destination, heaven or hell? Just keep doing righteous deeds, but hide them, never tell. For if we do, then our sincerity will always be in question, and never will we know our fate until the day of resurrection. Oh yeah, one final point about Allah will behave. As the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah is in the best opinion of the slave. And finally, I urge you to do good and never tell a lie, and always be mindful in what state you will die.